Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Making the Most of Google's Improvements to Search Ads. My name's Michelle, and I'm just here to get things started before I pass things off to today's presenter. So, a little bit more about WordStream. For those of you who may not be familiar, we are obviously pretty well known for our content across the industry for all things online advertising. But what most people don't recognize about us is that we do also offer a software solution for your online advertising campaigns. So we're kind of like your one-stop shop for online advertising. We've got your Facebook ads, your Bing ads, and your Google ads all on one platform. So it's really special software. So if you're not overly familiar with us, definitely head to our website following the webinar to check out more. A couple more logistics before we get into today's content. Our webinar will be recorded, so don't panic if you have to hop off, if you have to jump into a meeting. All registrants will receive an email within 48 hours of our live presentation, and that will entail the recording as well as today's slide deck. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. And super, super important, we're here for you. We want to hear from you. So submit your questions in the GoToWebinar dashboard there, and we will certainly save time for that at the end of today's webinar. Okay, so now my favorite part of every webinar is to introduce our presenter. This presenter, specifically my good friend Mark, he's a genius. He has over 6 years of experience in paid search. He's our senior data scientist here at WordStream. He's always topping the charts as far as his influence in the PPC world for the last 3 years consecutively. So he's really a star, and he is the best person to present this material today, so I will not keep you from him any longer. Mark, take it away.
Michelle, this is always probably, I know it's your favorite part of the webinar, but this is always the most difficult part for me because I'm not prone to take compliments and you always pump me up so much, so thank you.
You're far too humble, Mark.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. So guys, I'm really excited about this. As Michelle said, I've got over 6 years, which I'll lie, and if you ask me my age at this point, but yeah, 6 years paid search experience, and it's been an insane one at this point. The things that have changed, things that change on a regular basis over on the Google side, the Bing side, the Facebook side, there's never a dull day. I'm really excited to talk about this particular change with respect to our ad copy though. So I'm going to dive into a lot of the details about what's changing with respect to our ads. Some best practices, going to say some things that we've already seen work and some things that we've already seen not work with these new ads. But I want to keep this super useful for you guys. I'm probably going to have about half an hour of structured content. I really do want to rely on your questions and answers today though, so make sure that you send them my way. If you've got specific questions you want answered, please, I'm not going to hear them unless you send them my way. But with that, yeah. Our ads are changing. This is something that I just was talking about. I've been doing this for 6 years, and when I first started in paid search in 2012, 2013, this is what our text ads look like. And it was one of those things you could have gotten this tattooed on your forearm or something like that. This 25 character headline to 35 character descriptions. It came to 90 characters max that you could have in your ads. And that's really the OG paid search, the OG AdWords, what it was for 16 consecutive years. We were familiar with this 90 character ad format. This is what I grew up doing in paid search. And then a couple of years ago, back in 2016, Google turned our text ads all of a sudden on their heads. They introduced these expanded text ads, and they're of course larger. They went from having one headline to 2 headlines. Those headlines grew in size, as did that description field. So that change, it was about an increase of 50% in our ad copy. It became slightly larger than a tweet. At the time, it was kind of this groundbreaking move, and genuinely I was on for those of you who have been following WordStream long enough or who have had the pleasure or displeasure of listening to me talk for this long, this is actually a slide from 2016 where we first started talking about this change. And it was one of those things that at the time, 2016, Google itself, when they first announced it, called this the largest change to happen in Google AdWords ever up to that point. And so this expanded text ad format, was brand new. It was larger. It was 50% larger than anything we'd seen on the SERP. This was a slide from 2016. Aaron and I presented this together to take you way back. It was a big deal in 2016. And what we saw as people made that transition from these small 90-character standard text ads to these larger expanded text ads in 2016 was that generally bigger was better. Advertisers, when we looked across here, a sample of 8,125 clients who made this transition in 2016, early 2017, advertisers saw an average click-through rate boost between 15 and 20% when they were making this transition. And that's just by the size of the ads. This isn't without changing their keywords. This isn't about going in and adding negatives. This isn't optimization of the accounts. This was just about writing a new ad format. And it had this revolutionary effect on the industry, like 20% across the entire industry, was huge. Our old benchmarks no longer meant what was good in paid search was no longer good in paid search. Everything just became bigger and better all of a sudden. And so with that in mind, if that change really comes into play when we start talking about what's happening today, because earlier this month, this is just a couple of weeks old at this point. Basically, the second it happened, you guys got an email about this webinar. We were excited to do this webinar. We had some advance notice that was going to come. But today, these ads are expanding again. We're going from not having one headline, not having two headlines, but now 3 separate headlines in each individual text ad. But not just having 3 headlines here. Not only does that space at the top of the SERP take up more space, but also there's these descriptions grew from 80 characters to 90 characters, and now we have 2 of them as well. So we went effectively from having 170 characters in each text ad to somewhere in the, well, not somewhere, now a 300 character maximum in each one of our text ads. So we saw this giant change 2 years ago when they added just 80 characters to this, when they increased it by 50%. Now effectively we're looking at 300 characters, and we're doubling in size because of that. And that change is serious. So whereas previously we had this ETA format over here, we had 2 headlines, 2 path fields, 1 description, 160, 170 characters tops. Well, now this new format, we get that 3rd headline. We can show up to 3 headlines. They're still the same size, but we now have that additional space on the SERP in our headlines. The path fields don't change. The domain, our ads are still going to send traffic to a website. And we have that option to add in those 2 path fields within our URL here. So here we look at example.com /men's shoes /outdoor. Those men's shoes and outdoor, those are the path fields we're talking about here. That doesn't necessarily mean that this ad goes directly to that specific site, but those path fields allow us to give the idea that a user is going to go to a more appropriate page than just going to our home page. It allows us to put our keywords in there. It allows us to ensure the searcher that this is very relevant to their search and they're going to be taken to the correct website. So nothing is changing there, but our description lines are exploding in size. We go from having that 180 characters worth of description to now 290 characters worth descriptions. So now just our descriptions in itself become as large as previously our entire ad. So this is a giant change in terms of exactly what it is that we're serving to customers when they're searching for us. And this isn't, unique to a specific industry. Every single advertiser is going through the exact same changes here. And so this isn't just something that you're thinking about in your accounts. This is something that your competitors are going to do as well. And there's not a drop dead date on this. This is live. It's here today. And then you can get started playing with it right away. So this is a huge change that came out of, honestly, almost nowhere. And yet all of a sudden our ads are now twice as big. It's the largest ever search ads that we've seen on SERP. 300 characters max, almost twice as large as the old ads that we saw. This is huge. When Google first announced it, this was one of the things that immediately just about everyone in the room perked up, They know that they're really interested in this. This is going to be a game changer for literally every account. Oftentimes when Google makes an announcement or makes a change, there are some people who are very excited about it. There are some people who are not as excited about it. There is always not 100% response rate on this kind of stuff. But here we're looking at this. This is something that genuinely, after Google made this announcement, I did not hear a single person who was not excited and not already preparing what they were going to write in all of their ads. So this is a huge focus on your ads this particular year, with respect to the fact that this is the largest search ad that Google ever put out there. And of course, bigger does generally translate to better. 2016, I mentioned the fact that just transitioning from those standard text ads to the expanded text ads, we saw an average click-through rate increase of about 15 to 20%. Already, Google's announced that it anticipates these new larger text ads to get another 15% more clicks than the older ad formats. So this is a huge thing. This is something that Google is basically going all in on, and they've got big plans to make sure that this works. And so with that, I do want to talk about, because this is available now, there's nothing stopping you today from rolling up your sleeves, getting in there, writing some new, larger, expanded text ads. But I do want to talk about some best practices. I've got 6 for you today that I solidly am seeing as best practices across the board. But definitely, I'm interested in any questions, any feedback you have in the Q&A, and let's talk about it immediately afterwards. So granted that you've got these the ability to create these new ads, you've got the ability to change your old expanded text ads into these larger expanded text ads. You can go from 170 characters to 300 characters today. What should you be using that extra 130 characters for? What are the number one things you should be looking at? And the biggest thing that I'm going to suggest here is to avoid repetition or keyword stuffing. And this is the easy way out. This is the number one thing that I'm already seeing advertisers very excited to do, that if I told them, hey, you've got an extra 100 characters, their immediate reaction is like, oh, great, I can add my keywords in here another time. I can continue to just revamp, add in more of the stuff that I already say in my ads here. But I really want to caution against that. Looking at the ads that are on the SERP today, this ad right here for the keyword airport taxi, I actually was traveling earlier this week, and just looking at this ad, if we were to take this particular ad and add in that keyword airport taxi 1, 2, 3, 5 more times, it won't make it a better ad. If I'm searching for an airport taxi, yes, I'm of course going to look for, that keyword match somewhere in my ad, but this flat rate airport taxi, Boston Logan airport taxi service, go to logan.com/airport taxi. It's too much. It's adding in more of it doesn't make this a better ad. And in all honesty, this ad to me doesn't look like it was written for a human or by a human. And so where I'm the person, a person is ultimately going to engage with your ad, you need to look beyond just that keyword. How can we add additional content? How can we value prop ourselves a little bit differently so that we make sure that this ad, A, reads well to a human, and B, that we're highlighting ourselves differently than just a keyword. God knows, when I searched for airport taxi, this wasn't the only ad that showed up, but this was probably the least useful one because it just repeated that keyword 3 times in my face. And I know why people are immediately tempted to do this. When we talk about quality score, we know that, of course, quality score is partially based off of keyword relevance. So we do want to make sure that we have the appropriate keywords in our ads. But we actually see across the board that keyword relevance is the least important factor in quality score. It makes up about 22% of the final calculation of quality score. It certainly is important, but it's not the most important. It is, in fact, the least important. There are so many other things you could be focused on in your ads rather than just keyword relevance to make a difference. If instead I looked at creating that high quality ad experience that someone is going to be engaged with, both on the SERP by clicking through on my ad or off the SERP when they arrive at my landing page, if I'm making sure that that user experience is far better, that someone who is searching for an airport taxi, I speak to what they want and what they need, rather than just including the keyword in it, we see that we're able to make moves to quality score 4 times as quickly than if we were just focused on additional keywords here. So if I were just, so that's my number one thing. Avoid just taking that third headline, that second description, and going ham on the same keywords again. Very likely your ads today already include those keywords. I trust you guys. You guys are smart. You guys are always impressing me. This is not going to be the thing to impress me, and it's also not going to be the thing to impress the people who are searching for you. Think about how you can impress the people who are searching for you. And so with that, I want to talk about my second biggest tip. Rather than thinking about the keywords that people are searching for, think about the people who are searching for them and write your ads to them. So write your ads with your audience in mind. And I really think that this is the best opportunity for us as we begin to write brand new ads. Think beyond, the physical confines of what you had to write a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. If someone is searching for the keyword refrigerator repair, think of the mind like that you're bidding on this keyword refrigerator repair. You're going to serve your ads to everyone who's searching for the keyword refrigerator repair. But everyone who's searching for refrigerator repair is slightly different. I'm happy to say that I'm a millennial and I will probably never become a homeowner as such, and I'm going to rent until the day I die. When I search for refrigerator repair, I'm looking very differently than how, my mother, who's a homeowner, is looking when she's searching for that problem. Or if my landlord is looking for a refrigerator repair, we're having very different approaches to the same problem. As a renter, I'm not price sensitive at all. I really just care for that problem to be solved and be solved quickly. Money isn't a thing to me because it's not my money, whereas my landlord definitely disagrees with me. He would like this problem to be solved quickly and within the legal confines of the law and all of their renters agreement, but he's not looking to spend a whole lot of money on just making sure that I have a working refrigerator. And this is going to differ between renters and landlords and homeowners. A busy kitchen manager, your B2B crowd for this is going to be so much differently. If they have a refrigerator that's not working, not only are they out of work for a couple of days just trying to get this all up to speed, but they are looking for a solution now and they have money to make that happen. Busy parents, past customers, all these people, we're going to search on the exact same keywords, but we all have very different intents behind our search. And the way that you're going to sell each of these different people is entirely different. And so with that, if we're all searching on the same keyword and we all have different value props, we all have different incentives in play, and we're all going to react differently to different offers and different messaging, how is it at all possible that you could write one ad that speaks to all of these different people? And this is really where it's going to come into play. That as paid search changes, as your ads change, you really want to think more towards the people who are searching. How can you differentiate this ad for this person differently than your other ads for other people, even if they're on the same keywords? So think about that. What makes a renter work? What makes a landlord work? Who's price sensitive? How price sensitive are they? How would you position that to them? There is not a single one best ad, but there are best messages for different customers. So think through exactly what kinds of messages you could write to different customers and include them in different ads. Don't try and write the best ad and always be searching for the best ad. There is no such thing as the best ad, and you will fail trying to write a perfect ad, but think of the perfect message for the perfect customer. So someone who's sensitive to price, you might give them a message, same day service, free quotes. That's a different message altogether than someone who is looking for a more flexible solution. Anytime, anywhere, 24-hour staff. if I'm searching at 3 a.m. on my mobile device, that's a very different search than if I'm searching at noon on my desktop. And these kinds of intrinsically different ways that we search, even if we're searching on the same keywords, there's a lot to be said about including this kind of different messaging so that I hear what I want to hear, regardless of who I am, when I am, where I am, and what I'm looking for. At the end of the day, we're all selling the same thing, but all of these messages, fast response, fast repair, get help and get going, repaired correctly, guaranteed, satisfaction guaranteed, any kinds of these offers. You've got so many different value props. I've never spoken to a customer who had just one thing to offer or just one message that they would say to a prospect. This is your time. Definitely go get excited about it. Write what you would write to any different kind of persona here, and then test that against each other. That's my third best practice, is you want to test multiple ads here. Looking back last year, when we were talking about those customers who were transitioning from the standard text ads, that 90 character format, to expanded text ad format, most customers did, and they did it and they were successful, but a lot of them just did that. They transitioned their search ads from one format to another. They made sure that they had an expanded text ad. What I didn't see, and where most advertisers failed, is most advertisers weren't testing multiple ads along the way. Looking across the board, about 44% of customers who made this transition just made the transition bare minimum state. They had one ad per ad group. And even across the board, when you look at people who had more than two, more than three ads, that was a slim minority of people who were testing multiple ads. Only about a quarter of people were really out there testing 3, 4, 5 plus ads in each ad group, making sure that they could speak to all of those different personas, all of those different people who were out there buying, that not every person responds the same to the same message. You want to make sure that you're doing that you're giving Google the opportunity to serve better messages to different people. And you can't do that if you don't write different ads along the way. And we see the fact that that did not matter if these were better messages for everyone, if one ad performed better than the others. It looked like, just from a very high level, that oftentimes just testing it, making yourself go through that practice of writing multiple ads and including multiple ads in every ad group, that practice alone was enough to get people out of a lot of poor ad copy. It was able to allow Google to serve better ads to different people. And we see this, that just by including 2, 3, 4 plus ads per ad group rather than just that one, it was a very linear path in terms of what success looked like. Ad groups that had more ads performed better than ad groups that had fewer ad groups. And that was across the board here. It was really, really mind-boggling when you looked at how that could be the easiest way to make sure that someone was successful in writing their ad copy. It was just to write more ads, not necessarily even change the language all that much. This wasn't without changing in anything on their landing page. Just by getting more ads in each ad group, people had 21% higher click-through rate. So definitely, when we're writing, don't think about just writing one larger expanded text ad. Look at writing multiple along the way, and you're going to see that work immediately pay off. Even if every one of them is not perfect, just having multiple here is enough to allow Google to optimize and serve a better ad to people who are searching along the way. Finally, the fourth, and this is something that I want to make very clear to people. You want to still prioritize your first and second headline and your first description. So I know that we're giving you a third headline, we're giving you a second description. There's a lot of exciting stuff, of course, to do with that new messaging, but I want to let everyone know that this is not something that is always going to show. So that this third headline, this second description line, you can write it in your ads, and your ad may show up just the way you wrote it, like it does over on the left, but Google still has the option to not show that third headline or that second description. So even though you write the ad over on the left, that ad over on the left still could show like the ad over on the right. It could still show very similarly to the 170 character expanded text ads that we see today. So with that in mind, you want to make sure that absolutely go out there, write a third headline, go out there, write a second description, but don't get too hung up on what you include in that. That third headline, that second description should be additive to the ad that you write today. That was confusing. That should still complement the ad you wrote today, but it should not be the most important part of the ad you write today because it may not show. So make sure that you're not using your third headline to have your main call to action, and make sure that your ads still make sense when you read them. Read them again without that third headline or that second description, and make sure that they still are sensical. This is actually a fairly good ad right here, because we see that by not reading that third headline or that second description, that ad over on the right still makes sense. Someone who's searching wouldn't even know that this ad didn't show entirely, but that third headline starting from $79, that second description, comfortable, rugged, and stylish footwear for all kinds of terrain, order yours today, that's additive. It definitely makes that ad a better experience. It provides new value props. It speaks slightly differently to the product we're selling. It gives them a price point. There's a lot to say about that stuff that third headline adds to the experience. But without it, we're still serving a complete ad, and it still makes sense without it. So with that, we've got a couple of do's and don'ts. Definitely, you want to make sure that each headline and description makes sense on its own, so that you don't start or end a description or a headline with a headline with a word like and, but, or conjunctions, prepositions. You would really hate to have an ad read 20% off shoes and then that third headline not show, or that second description not show, and then it just ends with the word and then the ad doesn't, that sentence doesn't end. It doesn't make sense to the user. Still do include punctuation at the end of each headline and description. That's going to allow Google to really accentuate that part of the ad. And you do want to have multiple offers and call to actions throughout the ad that, of course, now that you have 5 different fields, 3 headlines, 2 descriptions, there's a lot that you can say, there's a lot that you can offer in that. You can include multiple call to actions within the same ad. Definitely a smart idea, but don't include anything vital information. Don't include your best offer or your only offer in that third headline or that second description. Don't have this all build up to call to action in your second headline, or sorry, in your second description, knowing that that might not show. And similarly, if you've got vital information in your headline 3 or your description 2, that also might not show. So avoid that whenever possible. 5, you want to revisit your ad extensions. And this is something that, it sounds silly. Of course, you have ad extensions in your account, and they're showing today, but I want to be very cautious. One thing that we saw when people added to their old ads in 2016 is that as they add more words, as they added more content, they add new value props, they add new offers to their existing ads, well, they would add in, of course, new, larger information, and the ads now said more. But Google's always going to avoid serving a very redundant ad. So the kinds of language that people would add into their ads, well, it's very likely the same kind of language they would previously rely on their callout extensions, their site links, their numerous ad extensions along the way. And what would happen is that once they added this into their main ads, all of a sudden those callout extensions that would just suddenly became repetitive to their immediate ad no longer showed. And that's something that's very subtle. It's something that you're going to likely run into the case that you're going to write your ads today, include a third headline, include new call to actions, new offers, new messaging within the ads themselves. And then you're going to discover that a lot of that unintentionally is just very similar language to what you've previously included in your ad extensions, and that those ad extensions are going to show less because they're redundant. So make sure that after you write your ads, you go through and you review all of your call extension, all your call out extensions, all of your site links, all of your ad extensions, and make sure that the language in those extensions isn't the same language that is now in your new larger ads. It's very likely as you create ads here, I'm definitely look to your ad extensions. What performs well? What kind of things do people react to from those extensions? And include them over in your ads. Definitely make the best of it, but after you write your ads, go back, follow up with the remaining ad extensions, and make sure that they're not just repetitive, because otherwise now you're just not having call out extensions. And this is a new opportunity beyond 300 characters that you can include in your site links, your call out extensions, all of your ad extensions, and get a lot more out of it. Finally, we did talk about how a lot of people, when they made this transition a couple of years ago, they made this transition, they saw an average click-through rate boost between 15 and 20% when they transitioned from the old ad format to the expanded text ads back in 2016. And that was, of course, really great. 20% on average is a great number. But this is a little bit of a tough point for a lot of advertisers. I know that when you say an average click-through rate boost of 20%, everyone immediately takes their numbers and they scale them out by 20%. Averages have a tendency to lie. And when we look past the statistic of what people did on average, we actually saw that, yep, that fact is very true, that when you look across the board, the average person increased their click-through rate by 15 to 20%, but not everyone was immediately successful with that right away. Part of being an average means that half of people were above it, half of people were below that average. But looking across the board here, we actually saw that 1 in 3 English-speaking advertisers, when they made that transition, they actually saw a decreased click-through rate after transitioning to that expanded text ad format. 1 in 3 people struggling with a transition like this is not a small number of people, as everyone had to make this change. That 1 out of 3 people who failed with this kind of transition, really frustrating. So with that in mind, the number one thing that I want to, and I saved this for last intentionally, the most important suggestion as you start testing your ads here is that you don't want to pause your old ads right away. So don't stop running your standard text ads, your very old standard text ads, those 90 character format ads. They're not going to stop running anytime soon. Your ETAs that you're running today, your expand text ads that you're running today, they're not going to stop running anytime soon. You can continue, definitely test out this new expanded text ad format, but don't abandon your old formats just yet. You want to make sure that you're testing your new larger ads against your old ads first. With any A/B test, with any kind of change, you always want to be testing this against your existing ads. It's very likely, of course, bigger ads should perform better. We saw that 2 out of 3 times that was the case. But you want to make sure that you're validating that first. It's very possible that your new ads, when you write your new ads the first time, it's a different format. You might not write the best ad on day 1, and that's fine, but it's only fine so long as you were testing it against your your best ads today. So continue it in an A/B test. Just because it's bigger doesn't mean it's 100% going to be better all the time, but run that A/B test first, test them against one another. If you find that the new larger ad, your new ads outperform your old ads, great, then you can pause them. But if you find that the opposite is true, if you find that you don't immediately succeed here, don't stop. Continue testing until you're confident that your new ads outperform your old ads. Then once you do, sure, pause them out, run your big, better ads, happy to do that, but then keep testing. Again, this isn't a game served in one round. You want to make sure that when you make that transition, when you're now happy with the performance of your new larger ads, that you continue testing here and that you continue ad testing, not just throughout the course of the year and make this transition, but continue to improve on that new larger format. And so those are my 6 takeaways right away. Definitely, we've been testing this for a couple of weeks over here at WordStream. I guarantee you we're not going to walk away with only 6 best practices. There's so much that I can say, but I'm really hoping you guys have a lot of questions that I can spend the next 20 minutes and talk about everything that's on your mind about this so that we can explore the endless possibilities of doubling our ad copy together. But before we do that, Michelle, I believe that you've a special offer for a lot of these guests who have stuck around with us today.
I sure do, Mark. First of all, thank you so much for all of that content. My head is spinning a little bit. We got loads and loads of questions, so I definitely want to jump into those. But to that special offer that you were just speaking of, I know we'll get to a lot of these questions, and we'll get to as many as we can. But like I just mentioned, so many came in, a lot account specific. If we don't get to your question today, please feel free to take us up on this offer here. Just for everybody who is on the webinar today, we can connect you with one of our Google Ads certified team members here at WordStream who will be happy to answer anything that Mark cannot get to. They can dive into your account specifically. And really get to like the heart of how this is going to influence your account's performance. So feel free to take us up on that. And while you all are deciding, I will dig into these questions. Okay, Mark, so we're kind of all over. We've got a wide range of questions here. So in no particular order, I'm just going to hit you with them.
Perfect.
First question for you, Mark. So these ads are bigger. Does that mean that there's going to be less ads per page now?
So that's actually really interesting. I don't believe so. Generally, Google's very good about when Google restricts ad inventory, that's a huge decision, right? That Google doesn't make more money by serving fewer ads. When they made that change back in, God, I'm really dating myself at this point, but I want to say it was like 2015 or so that they went from having 11 ads to 7 ads. Google let us know well in advance, and that was before they opened up the character limit on the expand text ads. So no, today on the desktop SERP, you're still going to see 7 ads in that place where you see 4 above the fold generally, 3 down below. On mobile, on tablet, they actually have that endless scroll, so generally you'll see 4 on that first page, but then as you have that endless scroll, you'll continue to see ads in rotation there. I don't see Google serving fewer ads anytime soon because that doesn't make sense to them. Obviously, fewer ads makes Google less money. Now, what we say about organic results, that might be its own thing because, of course, this real estate has to come from somewhere, and I guarantee you it's going to clear out the free traffic far before it takes a bite of its own.
Gotcha. Okay, Mark. That makes sense to me. So again, now with these new ads, another question kind of directed at more towards Google. So what are the conditions for, you mentioned make sure you're not putting your super important content in those additional headlines and descriptions. What are the conditions around when they might not show? And why is Google doing that? Why is it kind of up to chance?
Sure. And this is something, it is likely going to evolve over time. We saw it again in 2016 when Google first released these larger ads that your second headline might not always show or might get truncated or something like that. And it was something that we had to go through at that point in time. Google's using a lot of the same language that it used back then as well. A lot of this comes down to screen size. So if I'm here on my desktop has a 14-inch monitor, it can definitely show me an extra 130 characters without making that a bad experience. But a smaller phone screen, God knows how big the Apple's new iPhone is going to be or what that is going to look like. But a lot of these phones, like if you're using an iPhone 4, well, that's a much smaller, it's like a 3.5-inch screen that your fonts very large on, at that point, you can't really serve the same sized ad on a smaller screen that you could potentially get away with on a desktop. So a lot of this does come down to things like screen size and screen resolution when Google's rendering this. That's going to determine whether or not it shows that third headline or that second description text. And I'd say that that's Google's basically explained to me that that's about 80% of the decision right there is there physically room on the screen to show additional text? So we're already seeing that that third headline, it shows a lot more frequently on desktop. It shows more frequently on tablets than it does on mobile devices. It's showing occasionally on mobile devices, but not as much. There's not as much uptick as there is from desktop. Now, the other half of that, or the other 20% of that, does include basically if Google thinks that that additional third headline or second description is going to change the behavior if someone is going to click on it because of that copy in that third headline. So to an earlier point, to that very first point, you want to make sure that that third headline is additive to the experience, but it's not taking away anything. That what this isn't doing, if my third headline just said the same thing as my second headline, or it just said my website or something like that, Google's going to see that. It's going to say, like, I don't expect better performance from this third headline. And if it has to make that decision between not showing it and showing it, then it's likely going to cut the third headline.
Okay, gotcha. Makes sense. So switching away from Google for a hot second here, got a bunch of questions about Bing, and when can we expect to see something like this in Bing? Any insights there, Mark?
So from what I've had conversations with on the Bing side with the product managers over there, there's not an immediate plan for them to build a similar ad format here. Of course, Bing is always going to follow the leader on this, but there's not immediate plans for this. I want to say that, I always go back to example. I think that the past is the best indicator of the future. When Google first released expanded text ads, it was about 6 months before Bing released the same kind of expanded text ad format. Google kind of just dropped this in on us out of the middle of nowhere, and there wasn't a big plan. Bing didn't necessarily prepare for this kind of change. So I would absolutely expect Bing to continue to follow Google's lead on this, but it does not sound like this is something that we're going to see in 6 months in 3 months or 4 months or something like that. I would say that we will likely have a conversation about Bing in Q1, Q2 of 2019, that they're going to want to make sure that they have parity to what Google's doing, but it is not the #1 priority for them.
Gotcha. Okay. So now switching back over to Google.
Okay.
Some more specific questions about these expanded text ads. When it comes to punctuation, we had a bunch of questions. Do we put an exclamation point in? Someone said it's been best practice, they heard, not to use punctuation in a headline and not a description. What is the verdict on punctuation?
Okay. So firstly, I'll tackle the explanation point first, because that's the easier one here. I still 100% believe explanation points have a place, and that place is in the description. Policy has not changed, so you still get one explanation point across the board. It can be in anywhere in the description 1 or description 2, but not both. I personally believe end description 1 with explanation point, and then have an additional sentence after in description 2. I think that's very fine. That's how I feel about the explanation point. In terms of punctuation, you're going to hear a lot across the board. Like, some people love punctuation or special symbols in headlines. Some people hate it. I know I always prefer punctuation, because as Google, one of the things that punctuation specifically allows Google to do is when it has to insert a line break. So you always see it, that particularly now that it's got 3 headlines, maybe on your desktop devices, you'll see it all appear very nice and neat in one straight line across the board. But on smaller screens, those 3 headlines might take 3 separate lines. and there's going to be a point in time where Google is going to need to make a line break. And a punctuation is basically the best way to signal to Google that that's an appropriate place to add in a line break. So in terms of how people read it, we all expect to read full sentences when we read ads. We're not looking for gimmicky. This isn't email marketing, so we're all looking for a real sentence when we get our ads. And this makes complete sense in line with that. So I would definitely still encourage people to test punctuation, if only for that UI experience. That you do see UI matters. That's why Google's playing this game to begin with. But by all means, if you've previously not used punctuation and you've tested it in the past and you don't like it, this is just another test for you to run. If you discover that punctuation does not work for you, or that punctuation is not the end-all be-all in your particular account, there's no specific hard and fast rule here.
Okay, awesome. At least it's a good starting point, if not a hard set rule.
Yeah.
Another question that came up kind of frequently. So these ads are bigger, potentially could be better. Are we going to have to pay more for them?
No, no. In fact, a lot of this, so as you write new ad formats, Google does not bring ad format into its ad rank conversation, its quality score conversation at all, period. However, it does consider click-through rate as part of quality score. So of course, if you believe that this ad that is bigger can get more clicks, higher click-through rate, better quality score, same ad rank, lower cost per click. Very similarly, if your competitors are successful, if they're increasing their click-through rate, if they're increasing their quality score, and you're not testing this, then you actually might see your cost per clicks go up just because your competitors are making improvements that you're not. So although the quick and easy answer, will this change your cost per click? The quick and easy answer is no. However, if you're successful, it should decrease your cost per click. Or if your competitors are successful and you're not, then your cost per click will go up. So it's a two-part answer on that.
Okay, awesome. Another question that we got a couple versions of kind of asking the same thing here. So we've got this extra space. Is it best to use all of it, some of it, most of it? Is there a happy medium there for taking advantage of these extra characters? Or is there situations where it may make sense not to use them all?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. A lot of it, and this is of course going to change as Google changes the product. This is a brand new product. But you're right. There's going to be sometimes, particularly as Google makes a decision to show or not to show a third headline, a lot of that comes down into, like I said, screen size. And sometimes your screen isn't going to be large enough for 90 characters of headline, but it will be large enough for 80 characters of headline. So I would not push yourself to fill every single character of every single field. And then Google will appropriately, if there's just enough room to serve 80 characters and you're at 79 characters, it'll show that third headline. Whereas your super long ads, those might only see desktop all the time. So definitely test around different lengths. What I don't want everyone to do is I don't want everyone to write the same ad that comes to exactly 300 characters and then be frustrated with that experience when they don't necessarily show.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, we've got time for one last question here. And before we get to that, just want to mention, I know that a bunch of you had questions that we're simply not going to have time to get to. Even if you didn't take us up on our offer to connect with a different member of our team, you can always take us up on that opportunity by just heading to our website if you feel like you really want to get a bit more account-specific information. So with that being said, Mark, last question for you.
Okay.
So what is the best way to start implementing these ads? Is it an option to just go to your existing ads and add more? Are these completely new ads? What is the plan of attack for everybody who's yet to get started?
So my advice take this additional 130 characters as a blessing. Very likely when you're writing an ad for 160, 170 characters, you wrote your messaging to be contained to that method, to that restriction, right? So you made decisions about what you included and what you didn't include 2 years ago. This is an entirely different game now. The kind of messages you can include now can be so much more robust. It's 2018, the number of searches that are occurring are different, the way people are searching are different, the way that you target people is entirely different. I would fresh slate, get a good night's sleep, get a nice coffee, sit down, write new ads from scratch, and test that against your old ads. If you're in love with your old ads, sure, you can go in, you can add in a third headline, a second description line, but I guarantee you that that third headline, that second description line, it's going to feel like it was just like an extra arm to your ad, you know? And it might not make the most sense exactly. It is not the best ad that you would write. We saw this 2 years ago again when people were given that second headline, that a lot of people had that same temptation to just go in, add on a new headline, call it a day. And those are the ones who saw like the most mediocre results in this. So if you're looking to get the most out of this, take the time, grab a coffee, grab a tea, whatever does it for you, and then start fresh with new ads.
Gotcha. Awesome advice. And as always, awesome insight. So much content. I'll repeat myself. We did record this webinar, so everybody who registered will receive that email in their inbox. So make sure you look for that within the next 48 hours or so. Just give us a chance to upload everything. Huge thank you to Mark, our presenter. Loads of information there for you all. And we really hope to see you guys on future WordStream webinars. And again, Mark, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Okay, bye all.
Bye, everyone.